Well, I met Father Romero in 1962. He was a parish priest in San Francisco. That is the name of the parish in the east of the country, in San Miguel. I met him because I was the founder of Cursillo movement, the 3 days, of retreat. And he was the second priest participating in the Cursillo. I did my Cursillos in Palma de Mallorca in Spain when I was studying in Rome at the Gregorian University, the Papal University. There was a time that we were working together giving Cursillos in El Salvador, and I moved to Quito, Ecuador to study. And when I came back, Archbishop Chavez and Gonzalez, who was a great pastor, sent me to Suchitoto. And with the presence of Suchitoto, I was able to organize them following the Second Vatican Council and also the Second Conference of the Latin American Bishops, 1968. So I moved to Liberation Theology following the Second Conference of the Latin American Bishops. And Bishop Romero, he decided to stay with the old theology that he learned in Rome. He was studying in Rome during the time of the war, and in 1943, as there was no food in Rome, in Italy, they were eating cats, there was nothing else. All the students that were in the different universities were sent back home. He stopped in his way by boat in Cuba, and as Italy was aligned with Japan and also with Germany, even if he was a Salvadorian, he was put in jail with his friend Monsignor Valladares, who was his classmate. Archbishop Romero at that time was studying his doctorate degree in theology, so he didn't finish. He was a brilliant student. I would say that something that we must take in mind about Archbishop Romero is that he was a very shy person. When he was a little boy and he was sent to school in north of San Miguel, the teacher was asking him to go to play with the children, during the recess, and he didn't want to go. So the teacher was asking a girl or a boy to take the hands of the little boy and bring him outside, and was telling him, you need the sunshine, and you need to run. No, I do not. No, you need it. He was a little bit, not obeying the teacher, because he was very shy. This is something that you must take into account, because when he changed it, especially when he was preaching, you see in him something completely different, the power of the Holy Spirit. So we split, because I was organizing the peasants. We were accused, many of us, the priests, of being communist, of course, by the oligarchs, by the army, by the U.S. Embassy, not by Archbishop Chavez and Gonzalez, who was very in favor of organizing people. In the second document of the Latin American bishops, 1968, they wrote that if we want democracies in Latin America, we need to be organized. So my purpose in my parish was to organize the people. But Bishop Romero, at that time he was bishop, later on he became bishop, he was against that. Because the rich, who were his friends, and also people of the army, the president, and so on, that were military men, they were against. And he was not participating. He was named Auxiliary Bishop of San Salvador, and he was not participating in our life. Every Tuesday of each month, the first Tuesday, we were having meetings with the Archbishop, and he was not participating. He was named director of Orientación, the newspaper of the Catholic Church, and he changed everything. The former director, who was very outspoken, he was denouncing what was happening in the country, and he changed that. Then he was named the director or the president of our seminary in San Salvador. And after 4 years, we didn't have seminarians. It was closed. And for 4 or 5 years, the seminary was not working. That was Bishop Romero. So what happened with him? He was a man of prayer. That is very important to understand. He loved to go to the chapel or to the church and pray to Jesus. And it was very beautiful to see his face, you know, that was directly communicating with Jesus. He was a humble man. That is also important to know. Even if he was very good for preaching, excellent, even if he was very brilliant in his theology, the theology that was cultivated during the time of Pius XII, that was very conservative too, the Pope. So, what happened with him? Archbishop Chavez and Gonzalez was 75, and following Vatican II, he was supposed to leave the archdiocese. We were expecting that the new archbishop would be Rivera Damas, a doctor, very clever and very dedicated to the people, a Salesian father, but he was not named. I came to my house to visit my mother from Suchitoto, my parish, and my mother said to me, Father Bishop Romero has been named Archbishop of San Salvador. I didn't know. Not all the priests, no. We didn't know that he was named Archbishop of San Salvador. I was so disappointed that I said to my mother, well, if that is the case, I prefer to leave the priesthood and become married, but I do not want to work with him. My mother said to me, wait, you do not know what will happen. You know the mother. So she said to me, in the radio it has been announced that there is the celebration of his elevation to Archbishop. At the seminary, there is a big church there, St. Joseph Church. So I went there. And, well, all the bishops were there. Some priests the ones that were aligned with him, not the priests that were following the Vatican II and the priests that were following the Second Conference of the bishops in Latin America. Many didn't know what was happening in the church, you know. I saw some rich women and men to whom I gave Cursillo de Cristiandad. For 6 years I was working with the upper classes in El Salvador. So I saw them, and of course the diplomats. I didn't go inside the church because my heart was, against to go inside the church. I stay outside in the hall of the seminary. The mass ended. He came through the side door, and he came directly to me. And he gave me a big hug and said, Checho, I need to work with all of you. I need to work with all of you. And he left. So immediately I went to see some of the priests, and I told them, well, maybe we can work with him. It seems that he wants to work with us. That is what he told me. That was February 22nd, 1977. February 28th, there was a massacre in our park, La Libertad, the Liberty Park, in the center of San Salvador, downtown. People were protesting, about 10,000 people were protesting because the fraudulent elections in El Salvador. At 2, 3 o'clock, about 42 people were killed. Bishop Romero, the Archbishop, was not in San Salvador. He was in his former parish, diocese. And Archbishop Rivera Damas called him and told him, come immediately and do not move from San Salvador. People had been killed. On Monday, that was on Sunday, on Monday we were supposed to start a conference for 5 days about the penetration of the evangelical churches in Latin America. We were all the priests there, to study. Archbishop Chavez and Gonzalez was there. Rivera Damas was there. And also Romero was there. And we talked to Father Rutilio Grande, the Jesuit priest who was parish priest of Aguilares, about 35 kilometers from San Salvador going north. And we said to him, before we start the conference, demand the Archbishop to send us back to our parishes and to write a letter, all the bishops of El Salvador, denouncing what is happening in the country. All the people that were killed, children, women, men, students, workers, etc., 1977. The killing started in 1970. So Rutilio Grande stood up and he demanded what we were asking, and the bishops promised to write a letter for the country. On March 5th, we received the letter. And we were supposed to read the letter the coming Saturday and Sunday in our parishes. Rutilio Grande was in his way to El Paisnal, the town where he was born, to start the Novena of St. Joseph and to celebrate the Eucharist. He was with an old man and with a young acolyte who was only 13 or 14 years old. In his way, in the middle of the sugarcane plantation, he was killed. Father Rutilio Grande and the old man and the boy. At that time, I was not anymore in my parish. Archbishop Romero requested me to move to San Salvador with him because the National Guards wanted to kill me. They were trying different times. I was the first priest to be kidnapped and tortured in 1970 in El Salvador, the first priest to be kidnapped and tortured. So Archbishop Romero asked me to move to San Salvador and stay with him. He came to my room. We were living at the seminary. It was about 9 o'clock in the night. And he said, Chencho, do not move from here. Father Rutilio Grande has been killed. And I saw the tears in his eyes. Stay here. Maybe tomorrow you can go for the burial. So I stayed there. It was not easy because Rutilio Grande was my friend too. Many times we were working together. And Archbishop Romero went to Aguilares, the parish of Father Rutilio Grande. The next day we had the celebration of the burial. And then we asked Archbishop Romero to meet with him the following days. That was March 12th, the killing. His elevation was February 22nd. March 12th, the killing of Rutilio Grande. And then our meetings. We were many people there. And for the first time, I saw all the Jesuits that were participating in these meetings. At the end, we proposed to Archbishop Romero. We presented to him our conclusions. And one of the conclusions was to celebrate the Eucharist the coming Sunday, March 20th, in front of our cathedral. For him, that was too much. Theologically speaking, in his way of thinking, he didn't accept that. And we asked him, can we vote? And he said yes. The first act of democracy in the Catholic Church in El Salvador. Yeah, and by a conservative bishop. So, every one of us voted in favor of the Mass. But there is something that I would like to talk to you about what happened before the burial of Father Rutilio Grande. This was presented by Archbishop Rivera Damas. He was celebrating a Mass for Rutilio Grande. The remains of Rutilio were there, the body was there in the church. And he saw at that moment that he was celebrating the Eucharist, coming Archbishop Romero, kneeling down in front of Rutilio, and he heard the prayer of Oscar Romero. You have been killed, my friend. And the peasants are killed, and the workers are killed. Now I want to follow your path. For me, that was his conversion to the poor, a big change. That was the moment that his heart was moved to work for the poor. But there are people, priests and non-priests, even people who do not believe, who work for the poor. Of course, that was a bigger step, but it was not enough. Rivera Damas, the auxiliary bishop, asked him to read the letter in San Jose de la Montaña, the seminary. That was the place where the very rich people were coming for the Mass. And he said, no, I cannot read here the letter. I do not know who wrote that letter. He didn't write any word for that letter. I do not accept that letter. But I will read the letter in our cathedral, through the radio. He knew that the rich people were not hearing the radio, but the peasants and many other people in the slums of San Salvador and the other cities, they were following the radio, so they will hear the letter. But you see, he converted to the poor in front of Father Rutilio Grande, but at the same time, he didn't want to contradict the rich with that letter. So, what Rivera Dama said to us is, well, he is not reading the letter to these people, but he is reading the letter to the rest of El Salvador. That is good anyway. So, dealing back with the Mass, I was in charge of organizing the introduction to the Mass with the seminary. I wrote about 40 minutes of introduction, text from the Bible, text from the letters of the bishops, text from the very conservative newspapers, and I was able, following that, prophetically to denounce who were the people that were killing who were killing Rutilio Grande. When he came to the seminary, he said to me, I want to see that what you have prepared. It was about 9 o'clock in the night. And we got to see Father Delgado because he had a lot of confidence in this priest, you know. And I had copies, so I gave a copy to him and to Delgado. And he started reading and cutting like a tailor, you know, cutting and cutting and cutting. About 2 o'clock in the morning, what was left was about 20 minutes of introduction. Saturday, with my sisters, my mother gave me many sisters, and the seminarians, we were making placards for every parish, 136 parishes, that would be aligned in front of the cathedral for the celebration of the unique Mass. And the representative of the Pope, the nuncio, came. And he asked for Archbishop Romero. I said to him, he is not here. He said to me, he must be here. This is his place. Tomorrow is a terrible day for El Salvador. We were not allowed to have something public in the plaza, you know, outside the churches, by law. At that time. And I said to him, well, tomorrow it will be a great day for us. We will be with our Archbishop, denouncing what is happening to our people and announcing peace, announcing justice. And he said to me, I do not care about that. Take this letter and give it to Archbishop Romero. So he came back. It was about 5:30 in the afternoon. I gave the letter to him. He went to his room in the seminary. He was about, for maybe 5 minutes, inside the church, the room, and he came to me, change or read the letter. I read the letter. The nuncio was telling him, you know, a diplomat, the nuncio was, and the diplomats very seldom are Christians. It is impossible for them, practically impossible for them. So the nuncio was telling him, call your priest and tell them to stay in their parishes. I command that to you. So he asked me, Chencho, what I am supposed to do. I wanted to avoid the answer, your answer. I said to him, well, you are a pastor. And he said to me, I know that. And you are in charge of your people. I know that. But tell me what to do. I know theology. And I said, remember what we have said many times when we are giving Cursillo de Cristiandad, that if we cannot resolve problems, and there is nobody that can help us to resolve a problem, what we need is to go to Jesus and talk to him. Go to the chapel and talk to Jesus. And he went to the chapel for about an hour. I didn't go to the chapel. I was praying outside. Because for me it was very important to have that mass. And then I saw him coming out with a smile and telling me, Chencho, we will have the mass tomorrow in our cathedral. You know that before coming to the seminary, before the letter, he was with the Opus Dei. And the Opus Dei is like a sect inside the Catholic Church, devoted to the rich people. That's it. He was with them, praying with them. So that gives you an idea that it was not easy for him, to move one step and then follow the next step in order to consecrate him as a prophet of our country. So the next day, he came after maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the introduction. There were about 100,000 people in front of us. When he started preaching, he was pale and he was sweaty. He was tired, of course. He was slow. But then there is a paragraph that he was denouncing what was happening in the country. And for me, at that moment, he became the prophet that we needed. So, in front of the nuncio, of the decision of the nuncio, he understood the meaning of authority and obedience. He learned the blind obedience that we were learning, I was learning, for example, in the seminary. But then in front of Jesus, he decided to change that theology, confront Rome or the nuncio, and decide by himself about what to do for our people. A different concept of obedience, a different concept of authority. And celebrating the Mass in front of these 100,000 people, he became the prophet that we needed in El Salvador. For 3.5 years or 3 and 3 months, he was the prophet that we needed in the country. There was the time that people were not carrying, in the countryside, their radios, because from the homes, the people were hearing the sermons of Archbishop Romero on Sunday, and they had, the radio very loud, so they could hear the whole preaching of Archbishop Romero. And sometimes it was for 2 or 3 hours, for 1 or 2 hours, his preaching. During the week, he was receiving the information about what was happening in the country. Peasants, teachers, workers, students were coming to visit him. And after the introduction to the gospel, to the gospel, the explanation to the gospel, he started denouncing what was happening in the country. And at the end, he was announcing the kingdom of God. He was a man of justice, and he was a man of peace. And he became completely dedicated to the poor of our country. There was a time that a journalist came to visit him and asked him, why are you so dedicated to the poor? And what means the preferential option of the poor that has been proclaimed by the bishops in Latin America? And his answer was very simple, because he was very simple, to give answer. He was not someone, that was giving a big speech for no, very concrete. And he said to him, well, suppose that I am here, and you see that building that is burning. That was happening to me. They told me they are people who are burned, they are dying in that building. And I said, well, I commend them to our Father. I pray for them because they are dying, and that's it. That is what the bishops around the world do, and the priests and many other people, you know. But suppose that someone comes running to me and tells me, your mother is there, your father is there, your sister is there. Then the impulse that I will have is to run to that place and try to save them. This is what is happening in the country. Many people are dying. They are fighting for justice. They want freedom. They want jobs, work. They want health. They want education. And before, I was staying there and praying God. And that was it. I call those people the good people. They are good. We cannot say that they are mad, no. They are bad, no. They are really good people. But that's it. And with good people, we cannot do anything. Very little with good people. But now I understand that I must be with those people who are suffering. And I must risk my life as they are risking their life. I must be one with them. I have beautiful experiences about Archbishop Romero. On January 1980, I came back to El Salvador because I had a diplomatic passport from the OAS, the Organization of the American States. At that time, I was working in Washington, D.C. for the Inter-American Development Bank. It's like the World Bank. I was one of the officers for the financial operation. So I had that passport and I came to El Salvador. Otherwise, I couldn't come to my country because I would be killed. And I went to visit him. That was the purpose, to go to see my mother and to visit the Archbishop. We were sitting at the hospital, the Divine Providence Hospital for terminally ill people who have cancer. And he said to me, Chencho, it seems that the end is coming. I am really afraid, but I understand that I must be here. I must be with my people. March 24, 1980, I was at the bank, and a guy who was member of the CIA and working for the bank came to me and said, Chencho, Archbishop Romero has been killed. It was not easy. Certainly not. Certainly not. For the world, who is Archbishop Romero? I will give you two little stories about that. I have been running a foundation to help the poor in my country and in Central America. I am the President and Executive Director of the Foundation for Sustainability and Peacemaking in Mesoamerica. That is why I am here looking for some help, you know. And I came to Ireland, to Dublin, and I was invited to go to a school of children who are mentally retarded, have problems, mental problems. And the sister asked me to speak about Archbishop Romero. As soon as they heard, the children, the name of Archbishop Romero, they started clapping and dancing. That was beautiful, about 250 children. They they started clapping. And there was a little girl that came from the group, and said, and we want to give you a contribution, $3,000 that we have collected selling cookies and other things. And this is for the women in Nicaragua. I was working in Nicaragua with the very poor people in Nicaragua. That was the time of the war in Nicaragua. So they can buy cows and the children can have milk. That is what this little girl told me. Another story. I was in Jordan, invited. I belong to a group of people who have received an award of peace. We are about 25, 26 from different countries of the world. And we were having a retreat in Jordan, in Amman, invited by the brother of the king. So at the end of the conference, 5 days of conference, we were requested to tell the people why we were working for peace. There was a short man from West Papua with a doctorate in theology, an evangelist, that was receiving during that event his award for peace. So everyone was presenting why we work for peace. And I spoke about my mother. And I spoke about her because when I was ordained Catholic priest in Rome, I received a letter from her. In the letter, she was telling me, if you do not have enemies, it means that you are not preaching the gospel. My mother. And she went only 6 months to school. She didn't continue. My mother. So a priest must have enemies following her. But she was thinking, otherwise the gospel is not, the real gospel is not preached. And then I spoke about Archbishop Romero. And this little guy from West Papua came out of his chair and he started, he's my hero. An evangelist. Yeah, a pastor in his country. That was absolutely beautiful. I have been in different countries due to my work, in South Africa, for example, giving workshops over there. And Archbishop Romero is not everywhere. That is why we are expecting that there will be in El Salvador, May 23rd, about 200 bishops and cardinals, more than 1,000 people, priests that have announced that they will come, and about 1 million people. There is no place in El Salvador or in San Salvador that can receive so many people. It is something really wonderful. The world today is asking us to dedicate our life to those who are in need. Maybe it's a physical need, they are hungry. Maybe because they are isolated and their heart is alone. There is nobody to share the life with them. And that is poverty too. And thank God we have today a Pope that understands that. It is said that the Pope Francisco, sometimes in the night, he goes to the places where the Romans do not have a house, and he goes there to bring good news to them. We have someone who is a blessing of God. Well, thank you.